Good morning. It is the first day of the week and it is time to solidify those recipe plans for this week. It's Thanksgiving week and we are going to make a easy homemade apple pie. First, we're going to start by peeling 6 to 7 Granny Smith apples. Now I use Granny Smith apples because they are the traditional apple that is used in apple pies, and it's because they hold their texture. They don't break up as easily. There are a few other apples that you can use. Honeycrisp sometimes, they're not as firm. Cosmic, I believe, are also an option. You can use Gala apples, but they do have a creamy texture to them. They don't necessarily break up, but they have a creamy texture. And there are a few other apples that you can use in apple pie. You can also mix them up. Now here I placed the apple halves in cold water, and I did that in order to keep the apples from browning while I cut the other ones up. So we're going to cut those apple halves into slices now. Now the last time I made a pie, I kind of used my mandolin and put it on a thicker cut, but it's better to cut wider wedges for an apple pie. It just gives it better texture. It's really easy to go ahead and cut the core out and make a couple of slices to create wedges. And you're going to put all of these wedges that you're chopping back into that water so that they can stay fresh also. All right, we're also going to need a half of a lemon. We're going to put that aside, and we are going to prepare our pie crust. We are going to roll out our pie crust because the edges aren't always even, and we want to make sure that we have good coverage in our pie pan. We don't want to roll it too thin, but we just want to make sure that it's an even circle, at least as even as we can get it. Our next step is to butter our pie dish, and that's just to keep the crust from sticking. Get all those edges painted up really nice, and don't forget to go around the rim, the top rim, so that you can make sure that the top crust doesn't stick either. And then we're just going to pat that down into the dish, trying our best not to break any holes in it. I thought the crust hanging off the edge looked amazing, and if there was some way I could cook it and make it stay out like that, I would have, but of course, as the dough heats up, it would have started melting off. So don't be overzealous with your slits in the bottom. The bigger slits that I made in this pie crust ended up separating the dough a little bit more than I expected. So the smaller cuts or slits are fine. And we're going to cut the edge of that off, and we're going to put that in the oven for about 5 or 10 minutes just to lightly brown it. Now this is the top crust here. We're going to follow the same procedure and roll those edges out. If you're liking this video and find this video beneficial, Please like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment. Your participation helps this channel grow and helps me bring you more great recipes. Now we're going to cut this dough into wide strips so we can create our lattice work for the top of the apple pie. And we're going to put those strips that we cut into the freezer, and it's going to really help us at the end. We're going to add 2 tablespoons of butter to our pan, and we're going to melt that and then add in the apples. We're just trying to get a little heat on these apples, and what happens is, because we're pre-cooking them, it doesn't take as long to bake the apple pie in the oven. Now, if for some reason you prefer to do it the traditional way, you would take these sliced apples after you've drained them. You would add all of the ingredients that I'm adding to the skillet to a bowl with the apples, mix it together, and then you would just put that in the pie crust. You're going to add a half a teaspoon of cinnamon, 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, and 1 to 1 1/4 cups of sugar. And that is going to be based upon the sweetness of the apple. So you'd want to take a bite of one of the slices just to see how sweet they are. And you're going to mix this up until it forms a syrup. Now you only want to cook your apples about 5 minutes, because what you don't want to do is for them to start turning into applesauce. You just want to get a little heat on them, cook them just a little bit. And then you're going to add them to the pie plate. And this is with the pre-cooked bottom crust in it. Now, I admittedly say I browned the crust too much. I left it in the oven, I forgot it was in there, and I didn't put my timer on. But that's okay, because you know what? The pie turned out awesome afterwards. As you can see, it was a little dark here. Now, by putting those strips of dough into the freezer, they become stiff, and it makes it so much easier to make your lattice work. Otherwise, they start melting due to the heat of the apples, and it just makes it more difficult to lift up each piece. But because they were in the freezer, it's just so much easier to place them, as you can see here. Now we're going to butter that crust. That is an important step. Put a little butter on there. It's going to help with the flavor of the crust. It's going to make it buttery and nice. And it's also going to help brown that crust. And since we baked that and it drew the bottom crust in, we're just making a top crust. And we're going to just roll those edges up and fold them in. You know, it doesn't matter how experienced you are as a baker. There's always a lesson to be learned about how you cook. So, you know, if you make a mistake in the kitchen, that's okay, because you just learned something you shouldn't do. So, you know, just always be willing to take chances. Always be willing to do something new. Always be willing to be creative and just, you know, try something to see if it works. And if it doesn't, hey, just try something else. I'm just adding a few pieces in there because I don't want it to burn the crust, the edges really quickly. So I'm adding a few pieces of dough in there just to make sure everything is copacetic. That's a beautiful pie already. I just think that is a beautiful pie. Look at that. That is gorgeous. I decided to add my own little special touch by putting an E and a C on there for the Everyday Cook with A. Renee. We're going to add some extra little chunks of butter. This is also optional, but I just put them up there because I feel like it just adds more flavor. I think you should, but you do what is best for you, because I know this is a lot of butter in this dish, but hey, it's apple pie. And we're going to toss this in the oven on 375, and we're going to bake that for 30 minutes. And this is what it comes out looking like. That is a gorgeous pie. Look at that, y'all. It is so nice and delicious, flavorful, buttery. It's everything you'd want in an apple pie, and it's a beautiful presentation. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share this video. And if you have a comment, leave a comment. And finally, happy Thanksgiving!